One wrong answer at the immigration counter can send a traveler from the arrivals hall straight into a detention room for hours of questioning. Border agents across the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia all use the same 12 questions to make that decision. And most travelers fail these immigration questions without ever realizing what went wrong. Immigration officers don't ask random questions. Every question at the immigration checkpoint serves a calculated purpose, designed to verify intentions, assess risk, and detect inconsistencies in a traveler's story within seconds of a conversation starting. This video breaks down all 12 immigration questions that border agents use at airports worldwide, explains exactly why each one gets asked, and reveals how to answer without raising red flags or triggering secondary screening. Question 1. May I see your passport? Almost every immigration interview begins with the same 6 words. May I see your passport? What looks like a simple document check actually serves 2 purposes at once because the officer needs to verify your identity and travel authorization while simultaneously making their first behavioral assessment of you as a person. How you respond to this request tells them something about your state of mind before you've said anything meaningful at all. A traveler who fumbles around, searches through multiple bags, or seems unprepared can signal nervousness without meaning to. Officers receive training to notice micro behaviors like hesitation, averted eye contact, and trembling hands. And while none of these behaviors prove wrongdoing, they absolutely influence how the officer perceives the interaction moving forward. The practical advice here is straightforward. Before you reach the immigration counter, have your passport accessible, whether that means keeping it in a front pocket, a passport holder, or the outer compartment of your bag. When the officer asks for it, hand it over calmly and say something simple like, "Here you are." You don't need to appear overly confident or performative. You just need to appear prepared. Prepared travelers move through immigration quickly, and unprepared travelers invite additional scrutiny, which is exactly what you want to avoid. Question 2. How long do you intend to stay? This question directly relates to overstay risk because every country monitors how long visitors remain after arrival. Someone who enters on a tourist visa, permitting 90 days and stays for 120, creates an immigration violation, and officers want to catch potential overstays before they happen. When this question comes up, 2 things are being checked simultaneously. First, does your stated duration match what your visa allows? And second, does your answer sound certain or uncertain when you deliver it? Specificity matters here. About 2 weeks works fine. 10 days works better. But here's where travelers get themselves into trouble. Because an answer like, "I'm not really sure, maybe a few weeks, it depends," raises immediate questions about your intentions. You don't need to provide a detailed itinerary. You simply need to give a clear and believable time frame that matches your return ticket if you've already booked one. One common mistake involves over-explaining, where travelers mention they might extend their trip if things go well, or that they're staying flexible depending on circumstances. This type of answer creates ambiguity even when it comes from an honest place. Ambiguity leads to follow-up questions. State your intended duration and stop talking. That formula works every time. Question 3. What is the purpose of your visit? This question establishes the legal basis for your entry. And that matters because different visa categories permit different activities. A tourist visa doesn't permit employment. A business visa doesn't permit enrollment in a degree program. Getting this wrong has consequences. When you answer, the officer checks whether your stated purpose aligns with your visa type, while also listening for answers that sound rehearsed, vague, or contradictory. Tourism, business, and education represent the 3 most common legitimate purposes. And if you're visiting for any of these reasons, stating it directly works in your favor. "I'm here on vacation" leaves nothing to question. "I'm attending a business conference" matches recognized visa categories perfectly. "I'm enrolled in a language program" explains your presence without inviting follow-up. Where travelers run into problems is when their answers blur categories. Saying something like, "I'm visiting friends and maybe doing some freelance work" combines tourism with potential employment, and that inconsistency will absolutely be noticed by the officer interviewing you. And here's what most people don't realize. Officers often already know your purpose before you open your mouth. Because your visa application, flight booking, and accommodation records sit accessible in their system. The question functions as a verification test where they want to see if your verbal answer matches your documented information. Consistency matters more than eloquence. Question 4. What do you do for work? Your occupation provides context for your entire trip because it explains how you can afford to travel, why you have reason to return home, and whether your visit makes logical sense when examined as a whole. A software engineer traveling to attend a tech conference makes perfect sense. A construction worker traveling to a country where they have no documented job offer makes less sense from an immigration perspective, even if the trip is completely legitimate. Officers aren't judging the prestige of your profession when they ask this. They're assessing stability. Employment suggests roots, and roots suggest you'll return home when your trip ends. Answer this one simply by stating your job title or profession. A teacher says, "I'm a teacher." Someone in finance says, "I work in finance." You don't need to explain your company structure, your salary, or your 5-year career plan. Retired travelers say, "I'm retired." Students say, "I'm a university student." And if you're currently between jobs, you can frame it with structure by saying something like, "I recently left a position in accounting, and I'm taking some time off before starting a new role." The goal is to present yourself as someone with structure in their life, someone who has something worth returning to. Avoid phrases like, "I'm figuring things out," or "I don't really have a steady job right now," because these answers create uncertainty even when they're completely true. Uncertainty triggers deeper questioning every time. Question 5. Are you traveling alone? This question checks for consistency in your travel party, and what makes it tricky is that the officer often already knows the answer before asking. Your flight booking, seat assignment, and accommodation records paint a clear picture of who you're traveling with. The question tests whether you'll confirm what already appears in their system. Solo travelers should say so directly. "Yes, I'm traveling alone" is sufficient, and you should stop there without adding explanation. Travelers with companions should identify them briefly. "I'm traveling with my husband," or "I'm with a colleague," or "my daughter is with me," all work perfectly. You don't need to introduce your travel companion by name unless specifically asked, and you certainly don't need to explain how you met or how long you've known each other. Brevity matters more than most people realize. Officers process hundreds of travelers per shift, and they don't want your life story. They want confirmation that your verbal statements match your records. When a discrepancy exists, they'll ask about it. When everything lines up, your answer should be short so you can move forward without delay. Question 6. Do you have any family in this country? This question assesses your ties to the destination country, and while family connections can be completely legitimate since visiting relatives ranks among the most common reasons for international travel, strong family ties can also indicate higher overstay risk from an immigration perspective. Someone with parents, siblings, or children in the destination country might be more likely to remain beyond their authorized period. That's the calculation happening behind this question. None of this means you should lie, because lying to an immigration officer carries serious consequences, including denial of entry, bans from future travel, and potential criminal charges. Travelers with no family in the country should say so. "No, I don't" works perfectly without any additional nervous explanation. Travelers with family there should acknowledge it briefly. "Yes, my brother lives here," or "I have an aunt in the city," tells them what they need to know without volunteering excessive detail. Expect follow-up questions when you confirm family ties. Officers may ask where your relative lives, how long they've been in the country, or whether you'll be staying with them during your visit. Answer these follow-ups honestly, but keep your responses concise. The officer is building a complete picture of your situation. Provide exactly the information requested and nothing more. Question 7. Have you visited this country before? Your travel history already exists in their system, which means if you've previously visited the country, there's a record. And if you overstayed on a prior visit, there's definitely a record that will appear on their screen. When officers ask this question, they're testing your recall against their data. A traveler who claims this is their first visit when records show 3 prior entries has immediately created a credibility problem that will be difficult to recover from. First-time visitors should confirm it simply. No, this is my first time. Answers the question completely. Returning visitors should provide a general time frame. Yes, I was here 2 years ago. Or, I visited last summer. Or, I came for business in 2019. All work well. You don't need to remember exact dates since approximate timeframes are perfectly acceptable. What matters is that your answer aligns with what appears in their system. Travelers who experienced issues on previous visits, such as overstaying or being denied entry, should not attempt to hide this information. The officer can see it clearly on their screen. Acknowledge it if asked, and explain the circumstances briefly without making excuses. And here's something that works in your favor. Previous travel history showing compliance with visa rules actually helps your case because it demonstrates that you understand and respect immigration regulations. Question 8. Where will you be staying? Your accommodation represents a key piece of your travel story because it demonstrates that you have a plan, that you're not arriving without direction or resources to support yourself. Hotel guests should know the name and general location. I'm staying at the Marriott in downtown Chicago. Or, I booked a hotel near the convention center. Both communicate preparation clearly. Travelers staying with family or friends should say so directly. I'm staying with my cousin, or a friend is hosting me, answers the question without unnecessary detail. Officers may ask for an address, and having this information accessible helps you avoid awkward pauses. You don't need to memorize it, but you should be able to retrieve it quickly from your phone or a printed document. The concern officers have with vague accommodation answers is that the traveler may not have legitimate plans. Someone who says, "I'll figure it out when I get there," or "I'm not sure yet," sounds unprepared, and unprepared travelers receive more scrutiny across the board. Your accommodation details are often already linked to your visa application or arrival form, which means this question functions as another consistency check. Make sure your verbal answer matches your documentation exactly. Question 9. Do you have anything to declare? This question typically comes at customs, which operates separately from immigration, but both are a part of the same arrival process you'll navigate. Every country maintains regulations about what can cross its borders, including restrictions on food products, agricultural items, medications, large amounts of cash, and high-value goods. Travelers carrying nothing that requires declaration should say so clearly. No, nothing to declare keeps things moving. Travelers carrying items that might require declaration should disclose them before being asked. I have some prescription medication, or I'm carrying more than $10,000 in cash, or I have some food items. All demonstrate the transparency officers appreciate. The consequences of failing to declare when required can hit hard, ranging from fines to confiscation of goods, and in some cases, criminal charges. The consequences of declaring when you weren't actually required to are minimal. Maybe a brief inspection followed by approval. Customs officers receive training to spot nervous behavior and hesitation. Avoiding eye contact or defensive body language can trigger a bag search even when you've done nothing wrong. Honest and direct communication reduces the likelihood of additional inspections significantly. When doubt exists, declare it. Mentioning something that turns out to be permitted always beats hiding something that turns out to be prohibited. Question 10. Can I see your return ticket or proof of onward travel? This question directly addresses whether you plan to leave the country, because a return ticket provides tangible evidence that you have an exit plan rather than an intention to stay indefinitely. Many countries require proof of onward travel as a condition of entry, particularly for visitors on tourist visas. Travelers who cannot show this documentation may be denied boarding by their airline or denied entry by immigration upon arrival. Keep your return ticket accessible at all times. A printed itinerary works fine, and so does a digital confirmation on your phone. When the officer asks, show it without delay. Travelers with one-way tickets who plan to continue to another country afterward should show documentation of that onward journey. I have a flight to Spain after this, or I'm continuing to Canada next week explains the situation clearly. The specific detail officers look for is a departure date. They want to see that your exit is scheduled and that it falls within your permitted stay. Flexible or refundable tickets work just fine for this purpose. Officers don't care if you change your plans later. They care that you have a documented intention to leave this country. Question 11. How much money are you carrying? This question assesses whether you have sufficient funds to support yourself during your stay, while also checking whether you're carrying cash amounts that require declaration under law. Most countries require declaration of cash above a certain threshold. In the United States, Canada, and the European Union, $10,000 or the equivalent in other currencies marks that threshold. When asked about your financial resources, you can reference cash, bank accounts, or credit cards. I have about $2,000 in cash and access to my credit cards, answers completely. My expenses are prepaid through my tour company, works equally well. You don't need to prove wealth here. You need to demonstrate that you can cover your expenses without working illegally or becoming a financial burden on the country. Travelers being sponsored by someone in the destination country, such as a family member or employer, can mention this arrangement. My company is covering all expenses, or I'm staying with family who will support me during the visit. Both explain the situation. Be honest about what you're carrying at all times. Cash exceeding declaration thresholds that goes undisclosed can be seized and penalties follow. Question 12. Have you ever been denied a visa or refused entry to any country? This question checks your immigration history across all countries, not just the one you're entering. Previous denials or refusals are often shared between countries through information sharing agreements, which means the officer asking may already know the answer. Travelers with a clean record should confirm it simply. No, I have not closes the matter. Travelers who have been denied a visa or refused entry in the past should acknowledge it directly. Attempting to hide this information creates a credibility problem far more damaging than the original denial, especially when the officer can see the record on their screen. When disclosing a previous issue, provide brief context. I was denied a visa to the UK in 2018 due to incomplete documentation, and I reapplied and received approval, explains without excuse-making. Previous denials don't automatically prevent future travel. Officers consider them as part of your overall profile while understanding that circumstances change and that previous issues may have been resolved. What matters above everything else is honesty. Lying about your immigration history and getting caught leads to immediate denial of entry, potential bans, and permanent notations in your file that follow you for years. Tell the truth every time. Conclusion: those 12 questions form the foundation of nearly every immigration interview conducted worldwide. None of them are random. None of them are designed to trick you. All of them verify that your story is consistent, that your intentions are legitimate, and that you pose no risk of overstaying or violating the terms of your entry. The common thread running through all 12 is this: officers look for consistency and composure above everything else. They want your verbal answers to match your documentation. They want your demeanor to reflect someone who prepared for this moment and has nothing to hide. None of this requires acting skills or memorized scripts. All of it requires preparation. Before your next international trip, review your travel documents and know your dates, your accommodation, your purpose, and your exit plan. Keep key documents accessible where you can reach them in seconds. Practice stating your answers out loud if doing so helps you feel more confident. Immigration functions as a process rather than a confrontation. Immigration officers process thousands of travelers and want to approve you quickly. Help them by staying clear, concise, and honest. That's how you pass through smoothly every time. If this helped, share it with someone traveling internationally so they know what to expect and how to answer. Safe travels, everyone.